Okay, so I'm here with Erica G. Craig today, and it's a pleasure. Erica's going to help us with a few questions that international people have that are looking for working in the US or moving around and worried about how their international experiences are relevant or not in the marketplace. And I'll let you introduce yourself now, Erica.
Much. Hey, so yeah, I'm a help women really just get a understanding of what they're looking for out of their career, and just really trying to move forward so that people kind of have the job and life that they want and do things that are really meaningful to them. So I'm happy to be here today and answer some questions with you.
I know you work in HR and have a lot of experience in HR in corporate America. So I
Hmm.
think that will be really, really relevant for people who are listening, that experience from the other side, from the company side. What is the first thing to do when I get into a new country, following a partner, and what to do? These are like intelligent, talented, experienced people who don't
Yeah.
have a history in the US. So what do you say to that first?
Well, I think it's all how you frame things. For me, those are all advantages. Those are all things that you can look at as opportunities. Especially now, organizations are looking for diversity in their companies. And it's not just diversity in terms of like who we are or, what our ethnicity is. It's cognitive diversity. It's
Right.
like what experiences have we brought with us to this particular organization, or what thoughts might we have that are different, and that's helping kind of bring that new diverse perspective to a group or a company. And what better person to have had cognitive diversity than someone who is an international traveler who has moved around with their family and had so many different experiences. So for me, I can imagine how challenging it must be and how intimidating it must be. But I think once people shift their mindset and really get an understanding that they have advantages being in this situation that could be, positioned as opportunities for an organization, then they really would see it as something that actually isn't so bad.
So how would you say people could put their like a way of expressing and telling their international experience that would be relevant for companies?
Well, I think we have to really use like all the tools that are still like commonplace in whatever industry someone is looking at.
Yeah.
So, obviously having a presence on like a LinkedIn platform would be really important. And there's so much info you can connect to there. Meaning in your own profile, you can link to websites or, charitable organizations. You can link to companies you may have worked for in another country so that it's really easy for them to understand what you've done in the past. Of course, the resume is really something that's super important to be able to kind of outline your skills. But I have seen something recently that I think would be really interesting for an international candidate. People are starting to move towards this interview resume, which is
Oh, what's
very interesting, or a video resume. I
that?
just saw a couple of these recently. So it's basically like a filmed. You can do it on your iPhone. It's not too challenging. It doesn't have to be super produced or anything. And you're basically getting to share your story in a brief video. So like 5 to 7 minutes, you talk about your experience, what it was like for you, maybe from personal experience, having career experiences in one place and traveling, and you kind of talk through your education, your work experience, things like that on video. And it's something that you can link to your LinkedIn. You can attach it to a resume when you're applying for jobs or having networking conversations. And I think for an international applicant, it's a really interesting way to kind of give some flavor besides just what someone might read on a piece of paper, and certainly something to look into.
Yeah. So you talked about LinkedIn and CVs. What would be like your top tips for LinkedIn and CVs to be seen by someone who wants to hire?
Mm. So, we talk about a hiring manager. That's the person who actually makes the decision in an organization.
Yeah.
And we really need to get to the hiring manager when we're looking for a particular position and we're kind of putting ourselves out there. So, yes, a great resume is going to help. A great LinkedIn profile is going to help. Maybe some unique things like we talked about the video resume or things like that will definitely help. Once you're there, it's really about connecting with people. And one of the things I love about LinkedIn is that it's so easy to find who the right people to connect with is. It with a simple few minutes of searching, you can find who the hiring managers are in a particular organization that you want to speak to. And that's a great place to start and kind of reach out and start some dialogue there. Another thing I would completely recommend when you're in your job hunt, especially coming from another country and really just not having a solid network yet, is to really request something we call exploratory interviews. And that's where there's no talk about a job yet. There's no position potentially even open. But you just reach out to people in organizations that interest you, and you just ask for a little time to chat about what maybe, things they could suggest as a tip, or what you might need to know about the industry. And that's a great way to start building a network without any commitment or pressure on the organization to do anything, but have a few minutes of time.
Yeah, that's super valuable. And I think giving language to that for international people is really valuable as well. How to talk about it. I wouldn't like the exploratory interview. That's what it's called, this conversation.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for that. And CVs, anything that you would say?
1 to 2 pages max.
Yeah.
And I think transferable skills is one of my favorite things when I'm working with anyone who's looking for a new job or to break into a new industry or a new country. You really want to take the things that you've done in your past and be able to show them on your CV in a way that would be applicable to this new opportunity you're going after. So just taking the time to look at it and say, would this resume really be applicable to this new job? And it's perfectly okay to kind of edit and modify your resume slightly for each position you're going after, because the skills are going to be there no matter what, but it's okay to tailor it to the position. And I actually really recommend people do that.
A lot of people who are moving around with their partners have actually taken a break from their career for some time to take care of the kids, to make sure the kids are okay at school and a new country and all of that. What about the stay-at-home moms that want to go back to work? What about that experience is really relevant? And how to talk about it in an authentic way, not a forced way, because I've seen a lot of forced CEO of the home or stuff like that, and I think it's so bad.
I love that you say that, because I would agree. We don't want to create the job that's so super important, and no one would argue with that, but we don't want to turn it into something that it's not in order to explain what we've done. Again, it's positioning those times, and we would call it a break in service. So a break in employment, whichever way you want to look at it. When we have that on our resume, it's like, what did you really do during that time that would potentially be valuable, that would be worth noting? A lot of people do spend that time on some sort of self-development, whether they take a course or they join or learn a new experience, or they really dig into something culturally, which is very interesting. Maybe there's something you've done during that time where you've supported others in a way, like maybe there's a charitable situation that you were involved in, or some sort of strategic planning for whatever it is that's happening with your partner's career. There are things that you could really dig into and be able to say, yes, while I was off for the past 5 years and my main priority was caretaking for my family as we moved internationally, the things that I really focused on in my own development were these top 3 things, 1, 2, 3. And this is what that really, this is how that benefited me and prepared me and better equipped me to take on a position now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it helps sometimes to get someone to talk about it with you and then get it out from you. Because sometimes when you're a mom and you're feeling like, no, I haven't done anything. I feel like really out of touch with my skills. I feel like I don't even remember what I know. And it's a really hard position to get out of at first. So I think it really is helpful to really think of what's relevant, what I learned. And not
that's a great point. Absolutely, talking to people about it is just a fantastic way to realize all you've actually accomplished.
On your actual CV, would you leave the gap there, like the gap updates? And
I think it depends on what it is that you kind of self-discover through that kind of reflection. If there's something relevant, if you took some sort of course, or you helped a charitable organization, or you even if you did something in your child's school that really was meaningful, you worked through a fundraising project to build a new playground, or if there were pieces that actually had some tangible, relevant experiences, I would certainly include them. I mean, it doesn't have to be a paid experience to be considered work experience. So I wouldn't
Great.
necessarily leave a big gaping hole. If you could fill something, I would recommend you do. And I would challenge people to say you probably can fill it.
Americans that are outside of the US right now
Mm-hmm.
and maybe thinking about working virtually to
Mm.
American companies so that they don't disconnect from the market here. What are you seeing around? Do you see opportunities?
I definitely do. I think that is becoming more and more a presence in our American culture, is the virtual, abilities for us to work all over the place. The other thing I would say for people is that if they don't see something that really showcases some sort of virtual or distance work situation, that is something that can always be negotiated. And I wouldn't have you turn away from a job just because it doesn't specifically outline a virtual work situation. I would still pursue jobs that are very interesting, and I would be very, very strategic in creating a almost a pitch about, hey,
Yeah.
here's how I think I could make this work virtually, and hearing more about that, because companies are very interested. And if someone takes the initiative to say, I have a way to save us money, to get the job more effectively, to have an international presence, and to get everything, accomplished virtually, people are going to be willing to at least listen to that if it's not already on their minds. It just shows you're innovative and that you strategic way of thinking, willing to be creative in how you accomplish something. Now, it may not be all willing or able to do that, but it certainly opens up the dialogue, and it's worth a try in something you really love, you really want to go after, but it's not the right location. You can come up with some great strategic thoughts, and everything's negotiable. So
Right. So to end our conversation, what are your top tips for interviews?
be very prepared
Mm.
about the research the company. If you're going face to face, understand the dress code, have a clear, prepared understanding of what you're walking into, because it's always good to be already assimilated when you walk in the door and people are like, oh, wow, she really fits in here. And they don't even know why. It's because you've figured out how to fit in before you even walk through the door based on the research you've done. So, and your skills and experiences will speak for themselves as you begin the interview process.
Great, thank you. I think from an international perspective, like being here, people are very upfront about their achievements, and they really talk about them with no hiding nothing. And from my perspective, it was a little bit, oh wow, it sounds a bit like you're really selling yourself. Like, don't be afraid to sell yourself. Is that true for the American culture, or is it just my shock?
No, I think that's a great observation, and I honestly do think it's true. I mean, I feel like Americans have really mastered that skill of
Yeah.
self-promotion in a way. And you're right, our corporate industry, our businesses in America, there's not time. You're coming into an interview, you're not going to have, a long period of time to talk about who. There's no way you can show them aside from just flat out telling people. And you really want to make the most of that experience, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour that you have with somebody. You don't just want to go out and just brag about all your accomplishments if they don't really apply to the position you're looking at. And that's why researching and preparing for your interview is important. You'll know what are maybe the top 3 to 5 things that you definitely don't want to walk out of that interview without them knowing. And it's not going to be every accomplishment in your career, but if you have those top 3 to 5 things that you're like, they need to know this before I leave, you'll find a way to insert it authentically as you're communicating. So definitely a great point and a great observation.
So Erica has a lot of tips. I've seen your blog and I've seen your tips and practical tips. So I would really suggest that if people like the interview, and to go check your website and see what you have there.
Please come on over, and there's lots of info, lots of blog posts about this exact type of topic. And any questions you have for me, just submit them on the website and I will get back to you 100% and share my insights. So,
all right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Good luck.
Bye. Bye-bye.